What's up, everyone? I want to kind of get into Daystate Delta Wolf versus AGT Vulcan. Now, they're both bull pups, but there's some substantial differences and kind of a lot of similarities as well. So have 20 advantages and 20 advantages that the Delta Wolf has over the AGT Vulcan 3. So number one, let's talk about the build quality. The build quality of this rifle is heavier and it just feels thicker, like the metal and everything feels a little bit more sturdy construction. The next item is it's a great all-around rifle. You can use it for bench rest, you can use it for hunting, you name it. It just kind of seems to be a jack of all trades, really in a nice position, not great at one or the other. Overall, I would say the power is more than the Delta Wolf, especially if you have the stock version. This will easily put out in 30 cal over 100 foot-pounds of energy, where my Delta Wolf is like 89 or 90. And so I'm pushing 60 grain slugs at 863, and that's with the conservative tune. If I want to switch around and do some things with the plenum, I can push it past that. So just know 30 cal with 60 grains is moving very fast. All right, this actually takes a 300 bar fill, which I'll put it above and beyond the Delta Wolf, which is 250 bars. So yeah, you can push your slugs all that much harder to get a little bit more speed out of it. Bigger tank system out of the box, natural state. This comes with a 580cc tank along with another 200 cc plenum. So you get around 700 cc's of air. This normally comes with 480 cc, so I put on a 780 cc tank. Yeah, it's about equal now, but you gotta fess up quite a substantial amount of money to make this equal out. Out of the box in the natural state in which you buy the rifle, I consider the Vulcan a little bit more accurate. And there's a few reasons. First of all, it's heavier and it sits heavier in the sandbags or the bench. And also it has less muzzle jump. So when you're really kind of pushing those high, 30 cals at 80, 90, 100 plus foot-pounds, this just jumps less and it seems to sit in your bench rest a little bit better. The other thing is cheaper magazines and I guess supporting equipment. The mags are $45 and the magazines for the Delta Wolf is roughly about $100. So yeah, it's almost a 2-to-1 ratio for you can get 2 mags for the price of 1. In addition to that, another advantage is you actually get 2 mags with this versus just 1 with the rifle. So there's really no need to kind of spend extra money on getting another mag where you kind of feel like you need one for this. Another one obviously is no batteries. Now there's nothing to go wrong with this, but the batteries in the situation where you're always constantly charging the Delta Wolf and worrying about that. You have supporting batteries or backup batteries you have to purchase. Yeah, this is just plug and play, pretty much just take it and move on with it. Another one that makes me feel a little bit more comfortable is the barrel. This is a CZ barrel. And for the most part, yeah, if any of you guys, again, I mentioned the 22 cal CZ rifles, essentially they put the same kind of technology, at least the barrel in this, and you should feel pretty good about it. Overall, I would say the price to performance ratio is on a 1-to-1 basis. If you're just going to shoot one caliber, is much better in favor of the Vulcan 3. This costs $15.99, where brand new, I think this was over $3,000. Now I think you can have them for about $2,500 to $2,600. Things only start to equal out when you start buying barrels. The barrel system for the Delta Wolves used to be $1,000. I think now they're around $600, $700. So for the price, you could probably get 2 Vulcans for a Delta Wolf and an extra barrel. So it kind of equals out, but over the life expectancy, you're probably going to run into more money being dumped into the Delta Wolf just from the batteries and the maintenance aspect. Another thing I like about this Vulcan 3 comes with a soft case that fits pretty nice. Delta Wolf comes with a hard case, so it's kind of subjective, but overall, if you've had some red wolves or anything like that, well, from Daystate standpoint, a lot of times they don't provide a case, so that's kind of an advantage in my point. It's a lighter setup, the Vulcan, and it seems a little bit more portable friendly. Next one is the shroud. If we look at the shroud, it's a 38mm tube. It does a better job than the Delta Wolf as far as the sound. You could probably shoot this in the 25, 22, and definitely 177 stock without a modifier. A lot of times if you're wrapping this out in the 25 or the 22, it's somewhat significantly louder. Speaking of the barrels, this comes natural out of the box, 700 millimeters, and they have a 500 millimeter version Fortunately for the Delta Wolf, as this was purchased, I think it was a 600 millimeter barrel. You might be able to get them with a 700 millimeter barrel now. Not sure, I haven't seen that out, but I prefer the longer barrel because you can generate more power as well. So just know that helps with the air consumption and that. And speaking of that, even though the Delta Wolf is probably more efficient with its air usage, being it's electronic, the benefit of this, of having more air in a longer barrel, for the foot-pounds of energy you put out, you're going to be in favor of using the Vulcan 3 for the same shot count. So in my estimates, you're able to get definitely more shots of the Vulcan 3 at, say, at 90 foot-pounds of energy than you will with the Delta Wolf. Another benefit I like about the Vulcan 3 is the fact that it's slug-friendly, or it's kind of like an unchoked barrel, but it has a tendency, because it has so much power, that it seems to like slugs, and you can fine tune that. Now there is a disadvantage, and that is the fact that it's kind of pellet picky, where in my estimates it seems like, and I'll make an assumption here, that the Vulcans do really well with slugs and okay with pellets, where the Daystate models, they have a tendency to be better with pellets and less so with slugs. Overall, I think the design of the Vulcan 3 is much simpler, being that the fact that you can get to pretty much everything. There's no electronics in it. And yeah, it's very heavily built, but it just feels overall less finicky to be kind of tinkering with. This rifle comes with an extended rail. Down here, Picatinny rail. Notice it's much larger, and I actually had to put on with the Daystate an extended rail. That was like an extra $180, $200, because if you look at the FX Impacts and the Delta Wolves, they come with this little tiny under rail, and that gives you that whipping action. So the balance of the rifle is not that great. Fortunately for this, they put one out here so you can kind of get the bipod out here a little bit further to get a little bit better balance. Another one I like is the 20 MOA rail, where this isn't necessarily, this is just kind of standard Picatinny 20 MOA, which gives you a little bit more elevation. You're able to reach things out there. If you want to switch this up, again, it's another add-on. And that kind of leads us to the ending of the advantages of the Vulcan. A lot of things come with this rifle that you don't need to upgrade if you're going to look at an FX Impact or you're going to look at a Daystate Delta Wolf. It's just overall the cost is less, and it has a lot of built-in features that you usually have to pay for in other rifles. All right, let's go over the Daystate advantages. Right out of the box, that looks a little nicer. It looks a little fancier. They have this carbon fiber shroud, the design, obviously the electronics on the rifle. And yeah, that just looks just a little bit higher end. Obviously has a better trigger. Some of the Daystate rifles, or I should say all of them, the high-end ones, have an electronic trigger, and it can't be beat. Those to me are the top tier triggers in that. And another one is the action. The action is unbelievably smooth. So compared to the Vulcan or an FX, you have some play as you cock it back. A lot of this is electronic driven, so you just have to pull back your cocking mechanism and push it forward, and there's literally no fight or no play in it. The Daystate Delta Wolf to me has a better, I guess, warranty overall, 3 to 5 years. Yeah, they've been more in the States, so they're able to support it a little bit better. AGT, the Vulcans, are, even though the company's been around since 2011, their presence is growing in the United States, but Daystate's been here for so many more years. And that actually comes down to the overall company scope. 2011, the Vulcans, or the AGT, kind of came into works. 1978, so there's like 33 more years of air gunning experience and support for the Daystates versus the AGTs. Some of the things above and beyond the Vulcan is the fact that you have, as I mentioned, the chrono. You have an external regulator that you can set kind of on the fly, along with the hammer spring and tension, which is voltage and dwell related, all computerized. So one of the things that is the difference is the Vulcan 3 has a tendency to be a slug gun. I mean, it's set up for power. It's an unchoked barrel. Daystate, on the other hand, talking with the reps, they kind of indicated that, yeah, it's pellets first. They do a lot of pellet shooting. And then if the slugs and everything kind of fit into it and work well, that's an added bonus. Daystate has a little bit higher quality on their magazines. It's very nice. It's just all metal. They're really outstanding. But again, downside is they're like twice as much. Another thing is it's an external regulator that you can modify and you can kind of change and tune, where the Vulcan 3, you have to kind of open up the gun to switch the regulator pressure and modify it, which is kind of one of the biggest downsides to the Vulcan 3, which we'll show later in later videos. But just know the Daystate Delta Wolf is the easiest rifle to kind of play around with and tune. Let's get to the knowledge base. AGT Vulcan 3s are so new in the country United States that it's kind of tough to suggest. Like, it just hasn't got the knowledge base, and where the Delta Wolf Daystate has been around for a lot longer period. Generally, more people know it, and especially in the competition circles where people are shooting in tournaments, generally someone will know something about the Delta Wolf, even though you have to search harder than you would the FX platform. They've just been around enough to get the information you need. Aftermarket parts. Now, we did a Daystate versus FX, and we gave the advantage to the FX because there's just so many aftermarket parts, and I would give the advantage to Daystate over the AGT system right now, the Vulcan 3, because this is a new rifle. But in addition to that, again, Daystate has been around for a long time. They're just going to have additional parts, kind of people know that they're going to be around, so that support for aftermarket parts is just there. Some will take advantage of the less air pressure needed. This is a 250 bar fill, this is a 300 bar fill. Some people just absolutely have to fill their rifle up to the max, and it can be a downside. 300 bar is a lot more pressure than the 250 bar. So overall, I mentioned the AGT, the Vulcan 3 uses air. It's got a lot more power, but if we really had to kind of nitpick between these two, I think the Delta Wolf actually uses the air more efficient. It's just when you start really pumping up the power of the rifle, it kind of fails. So if you really kind of want to sip air and be able to adjust it on the fly, or just use it overall to see which one's going to more efficiently use air, I'm gonna jump on the Delta Wolf for that one. That's definitely, you can perform very well with this. As I mentioned, the air usage, you can go low, medium, high. The sky's the limit for as far as how you want to tune this rifle on the fly. The AGT, even though it's very tunable, it's kind of, for me, is once you get it set to your perfection, just don't mess with it. Just leave it as is. The Delta Wolf, it's really advantages of this platform is the ability to change barrels, change tunes extremely fast, and then come down to the fact that which one should you buy overall, and it depends. Now, you could buy two Vulcan 3s for the price of a Daystate with another caliber barrel. So do you want one rifle with two barrels, or do you want two rifles? Now, there's some trade-offs here, because you're kind of like, well, if I have two rifles, one of them could go bad, the O-rings and everything else, or you could have a backup rifle. If you go with one, you always know it works. It's always getting a workout. You're shooting it continuously. But if the internals go bad, then you're kind of out both rifles. And the price to performance ratio really kind of starts to kick in. If you get 3 and 4 barrels, you're probably better off if you're going to shoot all calibers at some point and you only need one rifle to be able to go the Daystate method, because you can just add on another barrel, another caliber system for $700-800, where each one of these is $1,500. So there you go, guys. Those are kind of the 20 positive, and on each of the platforms, which one would you suggest? I'm kind of interested in people, what do they think of the Vulcan? What do they think of the Daystate? How do they match up, and which one would you take? If you guys got comments, questions, write it down below, answer it, hit that subscribe, and hopefully see you next week.